do we know, everybody? I've been thinking of making a video like this for quite a while, and especially a lot here lately. And it's going to be a video on things that trucking's kind of ruined for me. And you see a title like that and you keep thinking, oh, it's going to be about some guy losing his family or saying it ruined his life. It's none of that. None of that. It's just little things that you don't really think about. But a little bit of a backstory, a couple of different points that'll make things make a little bit more sense. When I started driving, I come from a town of 1,100 people in the middle of nowhere. I mean, right now, I live out in the country, but it's a little closer to civilization. I mean, I say that kind of loosely, but we got a lot more amenities down here than where I was from. And we're not all that far from the interstate down here, but it was still a big change. Like, I'd never seen a big city or anything like that when I went to school there in Laramie, and they said that was a small town, and it was a big city to me. So, went from that, and I started driving truck. I started pulling flatbed. And that first year, I made it to all the lower 48 states except for one, which was Montana. And my next year driving, I made it to Montana, Canada, Mexico, all that good stuff. And after I pulled flatbed, I pulled bull rack, and it was about 7 years. So I was in the saddle for quite a while. Did a lot of different things, seen a lot of country. I mean, been everywhere. So, but a couple of different things that was really unexpected for me is when I'm driving truck, I'm going to all these major cities, and I learned to hate them. I really learned to hate them. I mean, whether that's because of the city, because how things are structured, or maybe every time I got sent there was always to a bad part of town, or maybe the people were never nice to me whenever I was around that city, or maybe it's traffic. I mean, you don't know. There's just a lot of different things that go into it. But like before I started driving truck, I love baseball, and so I'd play like MLB The Show, something like that. And when I would do a create a player thing on there, I would create a player and I'd say, okay, well, I hate this team. I don't want to play here. I hate this team. I don't want to play here. And then the rest of them were fine. And then when you start going to these cities, you're like, you know what? I hate this. And I just found that shocking. The game wasn't enjoyable anymore because I didn't want to play in this city, and I didn't want to play in this city, and I didn't want to play in this city because of a bad experience that I had. And so when it comes time, like me, I got a wonderful wife and a wonderful little baby, and my wife wants to go travel and go see these different things, and I just find myself apprehensive because I've been to those cities and I've seen those things, and I didn't like it. I didn't like how I was treated, or I didn't like the traffic, or I didn't like the people, or whatever, and it was just miserable, and it makes me not want to do it. And yeah, I have a hard time hiding my emotions on my face, so when we do go to places like that, she can tell I'm unhappy, and it makes her trip bad, and it's just not good. And I'm getting better with it. I mean, after I retired from driving and went to farming and doing all that, I find myself getting better with it. There's just a really, really long withdrawal period, which sounds dumb. It really does. But you think you spent so much time, so many years, working one of the oddest scheduled jobs out there, where sometimes you're working early in the morning, sometimes you're working late at night. When I was hauling cattle, that was kind of a 24/7 on-call deal. But it just makes it so I don't want to go to these places or go to these cities just because of my experiences driving a truck. Another end of this, where you spent all day in a truck driving from state to state and coast to coast and all this, that, and the other, it's hard to find joy in taking a road trip. it's just, I mean, when you're driving a truck, it is what it is. You're bigger, it's a job. Now, when you're in a car, it just feels like work you're not getting paid for. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. You find yourself looking for truck stops instead of gas stations. All the things that you wish you could have gone to in a truck. You find yourself bypassing that to go to places that and it makes for a less enjoyable trip than it should be. And there's a lot higher stress level, I think, in taking a car on a road trip versus a truck, just because in a truck, if they mess up and they hit you, they're going to take more of the damage than you are. In a car, you've seen all these bad things out there, and you worry about that happening to you. And it's little silly things like that. Oh, another thing that really got me is after so many years of driving a truck, home time is a very precious commodity. And if you're driving for a bigger fleet, they don't really care about it too much. It don't seem like, so, we'll push you back a day here and a day here and a day here. I know the first company I was with, I was like 100 miles from home. And instead of sending me home a day before my home time was supposed to be, they made me pick up a load going 6 states away, because it was against company policy to send me home early. I mean, little things like that. And like bull rack. You get told you're going home, you get 1 foot in the door, and you got to leave because you get that phone call. You get a call at 3 in the morning because some buyer forgot to get a truck, or because the guy that dispatches the trailers forgot to have somebody go get the load, or maybe he got called late at night and said, hey, I need more money to do this, that, and the other. So home time was always a precious deal, and when you're on the road all that time and you come home, you don't want to do much. Like, you want to do things that you enjoy because you've been away all that time. So you want to sit at home, you want to sit in your chair, you want to watch some television, you want to eat good home-cooked food. You don't want to go out to eat. You don't want to go do these things that require traveling. You just want to stay around home. And that was hard, driving a truck, especially for my wife, because she's cooped up at the house all week. And then when I get home, of course, she wants to go do something. I mean, that is one of the hardest things when you're driving, too, when you got a family, is once you get home after being gone all the time, your family wants to go places, which is understandable. I understand both sides of it. But now that I'm not driving a truck, it was still a hard deal for me to want to go somewhere, because you're still stuck in that truck mode. And like I say, it's a long withdrawal period, because even now it feels like you don't get enough time at home. And I kind of laughed to myself while I was thinking yesterday while I was cruising around the dirt roads here. It's just like no time is going to be enough. Like, I could, in my mindset right now, I could work a job where I work 3 days a week and then get 4 days at home, and it still wouldn't feel like enough time, because of all the time over the years that I've spent away. And it's getting better. Like, I find myself finally becoming a little more receptive to going different places, to going and doing different things. But it's still hard. It's still hard. And I didn't think that this part would take as long as it did. And it's still not right yet. Because like I say, I spent so long away from home, and I always had my home time ripped away for one reason or another. And every time you had to take time off, you got questioned. Like, well, what do you need to take time off for? They're like, hey, we told you we could take time off, but this came up, and it is what it is. But now I still have that anxiety feeling in my chest that, well, something's going to get ripped away. And like, hey, I got this stuff to do, but if I do this, it takes away from my family time, and I don't want to do that. And like, hey, this is going on, I think I'd like to go do this, but you know what? No, I don't want to lose my time around the house and lose time with my family to go do this, even though my family would tag along. So it's a really, really hard transition that way. Like when you go to driving school and you get with your trainer truck, I mean, you anticipate being out for a month or two to start out, and you kind of get weaned into it. But when you come out of it, it's hard after you've done it for so many years to try to live life like a normal person. Like even now where I'm farming, I don't work a normal job. I don't work a normal 9-to-5 job, and I get one day off every 2 weeks. I wish it was more. I wish I had every weekend off or every other full weekend off or something like that, but it is what it is. I still get to come home to my family every night. But it just always feels like there's not enough time. And then the other thing that I just mentioned, where when you're taking time off, you go to certain companies, they question you. Like when I pulled Hopper for a short bit, every time I told him I wanted to come home, I gave him over 2 weeks notice, and I would get questioned. Well, why do you need to go home? And it always made me mad because I knew they were going at the home every night, sleeping in their own bed. Every weekend they were gone at the lake or golfing or doing something fun. And I always hated being questioned, but I always got questioned. And I always had to get this big, long deal with all my facts right to make sure that they knew that I had to be home. Otherwise, they would try to screw me out of it. And that was pulling flatbed. That was hauling hopper for the short bit. It was pulling bull rack. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to deal with any of that. So even now, I find it hard to say, hey, I need to be gone for this time, and this time, because I don't want to go through that. I don't want to deal with that, especially when I got to see the guy every day. I mean, it isn't like trucking where you can tell him off over the phone and then let things cool down, talk to him a couple of days later. Now, this is a deal where you still got to go back and meet that guy face to face. And I'm a pretty nice guy, but I can get mean, and that's not good. So that's another thing that really is really hard, like going from trucking to this after dealing with all that with those dispatchers over the years and trying to work a job like this. It's hard for me to take time off. I mean, there's things that I'd like to do, things I'd like to go see, and it's just hard. And the other thing, having your home time ripped away, being told you're going to go home and having something else pop up, and something that dispatcher doesn't have to take, but he does anyway because he don't care. He's not going to miss what he's got going on, but my God, your stuff don't matter. And so every time that I do take time off, which isn't often, I always worry that something's going to pop up and I'm not going to be able to go. So I'm always on edge up until that point. So these are all really silly things, little things, but they're things that kind of surprise me. Because I figured once I hung up the keys and retired from all that stuff, I mean, because I had a lot of fun hauling cattle, this, that, and the other, but I wanted to be around my family. I just didn't realize how some of this stuff was going to stick around. You know, like the not wanting to go do this, that, or the other, not wanting to travel, and not wanting to leave the house because you don't feel like you spend enough time there, which over the years you haven't. And I don't know if it's just a feeling like you're catching up on it, or a feeling that, well, you're going to miss out on something, or I don't know what you want to say. But I kind of look at it, and I don't remember what this was called, but I remember reading a story about some feral child they found out in the woods one time. And they found this child, and this family adopted him, And they taught him how to read, write, speak, and all this, that, and the other. But they always had to chain the fridge, because that child would go there every night and take out all the food and hoard it under their bed. And even though they knew they were going to get fed 3 times a day, it was still that thought that, what if the food runs out? And it's kind of the same thing with this in a different circumstance. It's even though you know things are going to be all right, even though you know you're going to get your set time off, even though you know you're not going to get anything ripped away from you, it's that thought is still there. And it still gives you anxiety, and it still makes you worry about it, and it is what it is. Will it go away? I'm sure it will. I mean, it's been getting better here month by month, but it's still a slow process, and a lot slower than what I figured it would be. Yeah, I figured once I hung up the keys, it wouldn't bother me. Get home Saturday afternoon, don't have to work Sunday, good, jump in the car, go do this, that, or the other. But it's still not that easy. It's getting better, but it's still not that easy. And I do think that if I worked a job where I had every weekend off, it'd be a lot easier. I mean, where now I just get 1 day off every 2 weeks, it's still kind of like trucking, with the exception of I get to go home every night and get to go home for dinner every day and all that stuff. But I don't know. It's just a big change, leaving it, going doing something different, and then trying to differentiate both worlds. And it's just a long, drawn out process. So did trucking ruin anything real bad? Not really, I don't think. But just these little things like this, like just wanting to sit at home because you don't get enough time at home. And now that I'm home every day, I'm still stuck in that mindset that I don't get to spend time at home. It's weird. And then not wanting to go to certain cities or go see certain attractions or this, that, and the other because they're in a certain city, or, because of all the people there, because of different experiences you've had in the truck. It's crazy. But it is what it is. Anyway, guys, I apologize for rambling. This is essentially what the whole video is supposed to be, is just me rambling. So I hope those of you stuck around to the end, I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, I thank you all for watching.